So I mentioned about you have got to speak with confidence and you have got to project a little bit. Maybe not to the same extent as Stuart Story. Well, Stuart Story's voice could penetrate a brick wall. You try commentating like that, you're not going to last very long. But people do need to be able to hear you. So you have got to make sure that you have the courage of your convictions, but without shouting. The other thing that you need to do is, again, this might sound really trivial, but it's not if it's your car that it's happened to or there's some issue. You also need to have a sort of, when you're announcing specifically as opposed to commentating, you need to have your everyone now needs to listen to me voice. I don't mean that for any other reason than where you categorically have to give a piece of information out. So you can have your sort of jovial, relaxed thing, and then you can say, and you don't do this very often, so when you do say it, people go, oh, I better listen to this. If someone's left their car lights on, or on a more kind of practical basis, the time of a race, the time of a final, say, is being brought forward. That is obviously a big deal for those athletes and their coaches at whatever level you are announcing at. So you would say, may I please now have everyone's attention? There is a change to the start time of a final. You'll need to learn the way to project that, because that is one of the key roles, is signposting where the hell do these kids need to be at what time. And if they've spent months leading up to a county championship final and they're going to miss the start time because you were mumbling it because it changed, they'll be bloody heartbroken. So you need to save your everyone needs to listen to me voice. And, you know, there might be a more serious version of that, but those are the most obvious examples. Someone's got lost or separated from their family. I mean, nowadays it doesn't happen so much, does it? Because kids all have mobile phones. But I can remember that happening to me as a kid, and then finding a policeman, and then someone's making an announcement, we've got a lost little boy, and so on. So there will be these odd moments where you need to be the voice of authority, because you need to impart a piece of information that's very important to a certain number of people. Be aware about the same words. I've probably done it in this. When you're in everyday language, we all have certain words that we tend to overuse. In conversation, most other people wouldn't notice. But if you're on a microphone for 3 or 4 or 5 hours and you have a tendency to use the word superb for every performance or every event, eventually it's going to grate on people's nerves. So try and save the superlatives. I mean, I'm guilty of this as well. I'm definitely guilty of this. There's loads of different ways to say the same thing. That was a confident run. That was a composed run. That was a classy run. That was an excellent qualification, a brilliant qualification. Think about different ways to say the same thing so that you're not grating accidentally on people's ears. And speaking of grating, you all look as though, although I can only see a small number of people who all look about my sort of vintage or maybe a bit older. There are occasionally people with whom you work who, for some reason, though they don't do this in everyday dialogue, they click into a different mode when they're on a microphone, and I've never done it, so I'm going to have to think carefully as to how to do this or how you would even do it. But it's the person who goes up at the end of every sentence that drives people mental. I don't know where it comes from. I don't know why people do it. It's something that sometimes happens to certain people when they pick up a microphone. They don't do it in everyday language. You don't need to come across as if you're speaking to a load of children, and you don't need to raise your intonation at the end of every sentence. And look, it might be that you do it without even realizing for some strange reason, and you're giving your time. So if you have ended up doing that and somebody tells you, don't take offense, just go, oh, okay, I'll try not to do that, and I'll try and remember that I'm just talking. I'm not in that mode. As I said, I don't know why it happens. I think we're on to our last page now, Alison. Oh yeah, I just quickly don't bother taking the slide back. Little and often, little and often, little and often. Sorry, Rob, I need to collect my something or other from the station. See you, Trevor. Hope you enjoyed it. Hopefully see you next week.
You will. Brilliant.
Okay, good. Little and often with the water. Cheers, Trevor. Just keep that throat nice and hydrated. Right. I know I've used a certain number of commentary examples here because I have done a lot more commentating than I have announcing, but just to run over a few nuts and bolts. I've already alluded to this. On a sprint, you will categorically have less time when you're announcing than when you are commentating. So even if you have not done a lot of commentary, you might have, because you all will have watched a lot of athletics and probably listened to Cranny and Tim Hutchins and a few others, and maybe even me on the odd occasion, you'll probably look at that and think, oh, well, I've got loads of time. And lane 1 is so-and-so from St Kitts and Nevis. Lane 2 is Canadian. No. You've got far less time when you're announcing. So just be aware of that. And as I said earlier, perhaps with sprints especially, it's just one snappy line, and you might need to think on your feet and give one snappy line on 2 favourites, and that is it. Because you owe the athletes concentration time. You know, unlike in commentary where you can carry on commentating up until 2 seconds before the gun goes. I mean, you don't. You generally try and allow a little bit of breathing space, especially for a final, because it adds to the drama and the sense of occasion. But everything you say in announcing is going straight up to where they're trying to concentrate. So it's very important to look. It's really easy, isn't it? All of us have been competitors at some degree or other. That is the worst moment before you start, because in a sprint, you're probably conscious of getting away quickly. In a middle or long distance, you're thinking about not only your nerves, but you're trying to gear up mentally to absorb giant amounts of pain that you've got to run through to run a PB or get on the podium or whatever it is that your aspiration is. And you don't want the last few seconds crowded by some idiot screaming and shouting into a microphone. I say idiot, I include myself in that. We need to give those athletes silence to concentrate before the start. That's one of the key differences, I think, between announcing and commentating. And then the other one that I didn't realise until I started working with Alison on quite an in-depth level, you've got to remember, get excited and put, say, a 400 or an 8 or a 15 into context, but you can't coach. So you can say, so-and-so leads, that's fine, with so-and-so in second, but the difference, and I have to think really carefully about this on the odd occasion when I am announcing and not commentating, you can't build the drama by saying, look at that, the athlete in second is now only 2 seconds behind the leader. This time, with 400 metres ago, that was 5, because you're sending a message to the leader. You're giving the guy who's leading, a woman who's leading, information about how far ahead he or she is without them having to look over their shoulder. So old school people who've been around a lot longer than me are hypercritical of that. So you've got to find a way of conveying the excitement of the race that's unfolding, but without accidentally giving information that athlete wouldn't be able to glean themselves. Obviously, an athlete in the lead knows they're leading, but unless they turn around, they don't know whether the person behind is looking or whether the person behind is about to come through, and they start thinking, oh my God, I need to kick on here, and they might find another burst of acceleration with 200 to go. So that is quite important. You can say, well, a brilliant last lap in prospect here. Cannot wait. But what you can't say is this is going to go down to the wire because so-and-so has gone far too hard too early and it looks like they're going to be overhauled. You can't say that when you're announcing. But I'll finish off so bring the race to life with your voice. You've got to remember to have fun if you're doing this. You're giving up loads of your time. You're giving up loads of expertise. Yes, you're going to make cock-ups here and there. Of course, you'd want to turn up with a whole load of great notes in prep. You might not have had time. Just do your best. Remember that you're adding to the quality of the person's experience who's there. You're not there to get everything right. And we're all trying to get more people to have a good day out when they come to athletics, because it's in all our interests that at every level, people turn up to one of our events and go, wow, this is just really cool people working really hard, honest endeavour to improve in an event that's unbelievably accessible, that has gender equality, diversity. We're a great sport, and you can play a massive role in spreading that message from grassroots up. So that's important to remember.